Greetings, cultured and knowledgeable audience. Adjust your gas masks, especially if you live near Tabasco, and get ready for another dose of the harsh reality prescribed to us from the presidential pulpit. Today, I bring you the necessary poison to survive a Wednesday that smells more like something burnt than energy sovereignty. While Presi Chachis fixes her hair at the morning press conference, the Olmeca refinery, the one they inaugurated like 5 times during the last administration, decided that yesterday was a good day for a barbecue. You get me, 5 people have died so far. But don't go anywhere, because while the firefighters are putting out the flames of the energy failure, in Congress they're lighting the fire to burn what's left of our democracy with the new Plan B. But not everything is sunshine and rainbows, because if you thought that love in the so-called fourth transformation was eternal, let me tell you that the divorce has already arrived, and it reeks of pure political opportunism. The PT stood up to Mrs. Christina once again, and it looks like her sneaky plan is going to get shot down again. Let's get to it. Let's start with today's historical event, March 18th. While the regime's songbirds were warming up their voices to sing the praises of the oil expropriation, reality, that stubborn opposition that doesn't care about propaganda, sent them an explosive reminder. The Olmeca refinery, that $18 billion monument to ego, and counting, decided that the best way to celebrate was by turning itself into a giant torch. 5 people lost their lives. That's the official toll so far. But don't worry, the narrative is already set. It wasn't due to lack of maintenance or the rush to inaugurate something that wasn't finished 2 years ago. Of course not. Presi Chachis, with that tone that swings between elementary school teacher and iron prosecutor, already told us that the Attorney General's office is going to investigate. Explanation for those unfamiliar with government jargon: they're going to look for a scapegoat, blame them, while the real people responsible keep collecting their juicy productivity bonuses in Dos Bocas. The best moment of the morning press conference was the news that they're considering moving the nearby schools. Brilliant. After the refinery almost blew up their fence, they realized that putting kids next to a ticking time bomb with gas leaks wasn't the best idea for urban planning. But sovereignty isn't built with industrial safety. It's built with faith and lots of other data. Let's break it down. They say it happened in the outer area. Ah, what a relief. So if the refinery's sidewalk explodes, it doesn't count as a refinery failure, right? Come on, $18 billion thrown into a swamp so that on the very anniversary of the expropriation, the crown jewel turns to ashes. Without a doubt, we're looking at a level of planning like God will provide energy sovereignty. It turned out to be a complete screw-up and negligence, we told you so. And if you think the prosecutor's office in Tabasco was heated, wait until you see what they're cooking up in Congress. Because, like in this country, one tragedy is used to cover up another. Let's talk about the so-called Plan B. The Morena Mafia says it's for austerity. Of course, they want to save money on council members so they have more cash for Claudia's billboards. Chachis came out today to defend her electoral Plan B because apparently dismantling the judicial branch wasn't enough for them. Now they need to make sure that 2027 is a walk in the park. Convince anyone? The proposal for simultaneous recall elections with the midterms is a masterpiece of political cynicism. Their argument is austerity, please. It's so Shane Voltrufia can be on the ballot, campaigning disguised as a democratic exercise, pulling votes for all her party's candidates who can't even add 2 + 2, but sure know how to say, it's an honor. They want to reduce council seats and audit campaigns, which sounds great on paper, but in practice it's the perfect personal club to suffocate any opposition that dares to raise its head. Outside the metropolitan areas, it's total control, disguised as the will of the people. The most shameless part? They want to include the recall of mandate in the 2027 elections. Aren't they clever? They want the figure of the well-being maid to be on the ballot, to carry the bags for all their mediocre candidates that nobody even knows at home. It's the oldest trick in the beginner dictator's handbook. Vote for my party if you want me to stay. It's eternal campaigning with public money, but they tell us it's democracy. Participatory, my ass. But what's the perfect excuse for the tantrum? What's the heart of the matter? The principal, much like her mentor who claims retirement but still controls things from his ranch, she wants the referendum to be in June 2027, right on the same day as the federal elections. What for then? To appear on the ballot, to campaign from the principal's pulpit, to pull votes for her candidates. What a democracy these people have. Do you remember that phrase, "Together we will make history"? Well, it seems that the Labour Party, PT, has already forgotten the script. They've already realized they won't get their full share of the spoils. It turns out that Claudia Sheinbaum's famous Plan B for electoral reform is in intensive care. And no, it's not because of the conservative right or the aspirational people who went out to march. No, gentlemen, the enemy is sleeping right next to them in their own bed. It turns out that without the votes from the PT Chachi's brand new reform just doesn't pass that easily. In the Senate, they need 86 votes for a qualified majority, and Morena, with its green satellites, barely scrapes together 81. They're missing 5. 5 big personalities who have now decided that blind loyalty isn't so profitable anymore if their whims aren't satisfied. And the PT, which isn't stupid at all, even if it's a bit short on ethics, has already raised a fuss. Benjamin Robles and company say that there's no way they want the consultation on another date. Why? Because they know perfectly well that if Claudia is on the ballot in June, she's going to eat them alive. And the PT will end up being just a simple ornament on Morena's Christmas tree. The PT wants its own oxygen, its own votes, and above all, its own budget, without the shadow of the leader overshadowing their business. And while the PT tries to act dignified, well, so to speak, we have the Green Party, and they really are professionals. Luis Armando Melgar has already come out to say yes, but no, that they support Claudia, but they're not going to give her a blank check. Translated from political language to the Spanish of decent people, give us more budget, more positions, or more concessions, and then sure, we'll sign whatever you want. After all, that's the role that party has always played, being the prostitute of politics. Claudia Sheinbaum defended her proposal to discuss the recall of mandate. She assured that the main goal is not to promote the government, but to guarantee the right to free expression for those who submit themselves to this civic exercise. It's not about using official airtime, it's simply about being able to speak, said Chachis when questioning the current restrictions. To dismiss the criticism about possible undue promotion, Sheinbaum clarified that the proposal excludes radio, television, and does not let political parties conduct propaganda. In addition, she assured that the usual restrictions will remain in effect. She proposes, it's that if there is going to be a recall, then the head of the executive can talk about the recall, about why the recall is being done, said Mrs. Sheinbaum. He recalled that the purpose of the recall, promoted since the beginning of the fourth transformation, is for people to be able to say whether they want the president to continue or not. He said that during former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's administration, an absolute prohibition on discussing the subject was imposed due to the lack of a qualified majority. Finally, he said, the proposal seeks to allow the head of the executive to openly explain to the public why the recall is being carried out. Ah, wow, that's really something. You think all Mexicans are just as dumb as your cronies, right? A key change is that the person facing recall, here Sheinbaum, can now publicize the process and promote her administration. However, it states that government propaganda and political parties must follow the usual restrictions that apply to parties. The proposal does not use radio, television, public resources for collecting signatures, official airtime, or paid propaganda. But we already know that for these jerks, the law is the last thing they care about, so they just ignore the bans without a second thought. It's pathetic to see how the fate of our electoral institutions depends on the whims of a party like the PT, which survives thanks to the crumbs thrown to it by those in power, and the Green Party, which has changed hands more times than a peso coin. What we're seeing is the collapse of a bloc that was only held together by fear of the previous president's finger. Claudia Sheinbaum is discovering that inheriting power is not the same as exercising it with your own authority. Her allies have already figured her out. They're telling her to her face, if you want your reform to finish dismantling the Instituto Nacional Electoral or what's left of it, you're going to have to pay the price. And while they fight to see who gets the biggest slice of the pie, the country is still on fire. The economy is hanging by a thread, and what about security? Well, it's better not to even talk about that because Mexican humanism doesn't have answers, only excuses and its own version of the facts. Anyway, that's how things are in this country, where refineries explode but the presidential ego remains intact, and where democracy gets reformed until only one party's echo remains. On one hand, reality blows up in our faces, literally, and on the other, he wants to expropriate the vote with sneaky reforms. But don't worry, keep watching the morning show. keep believing that the black smoke is the steam of well-being. The unity of the transformation breaks at its thinnest point, ambition. We'll see if Chachis pulls out her wallet to buy the PT's support, or if this is another big legislative failure from a 6-year term that began aiming for empire and is ending as a neighborhood of petty squabbles. Politics in this country is a circus, but the clowns are getting less and less funny. Be careful out there and don't breathe too deeply if you pass through the Southeast. And above all, don't believe the story that this is for our own good. We'll keep scraping the filth off this gutter politics. I'll see you in the comments. See you on Friday.
You can make your donations via PayPal. Find the relevant information in the comments section. Gracias a ti, este canal sigue activo. Muy importante suscribirte, dar like y presionar la campana para recibir notificaciones cada que hay nuevo contenido. Gracias.